Systems are really freedom. Systems allow you to focus on what you truly love doing and you're good at and pass along the rest of it to other team members. Simple does not mean easy. Simple means simple, and you still have to put the work in. But one thing that I always say is the best system is the one that you'll use. Chances are, if you started a business, you have some fantastic ideas, you have some fantastic energy. That's all going to get squandered if you don't know what that destination is. Why are you doing what you're doing? And then peel it back to those steps. So that's where I'd start. And I don't care if you're a company of one, start. It'll give you a lot of clarity on what you do tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode brought to you by Imagine Strength, the future of safe, simple, and effective high-intensity training equipment. Are you a HIIT studio owner looking for equipment that's not just top-notch, but also tailored to your specific needs? Imagine Strength is your answer. Inspired by the legendary Arthur Jones, Imagine Strength is revolutionizing the HIIT industry with their state-of-the-art yet affordable equipment. Their team doesn't just sell HIIT equipment, they live and breathe it. I've personally experienced their gear at the Resistance Exercise Conference, and let me tell you, it was an intense workout that I won't soon forget, in the best way possible, of course. So why choose Imagine Strength? Number one, they provide customized solutions for HIIT studios. Number two, they have budget-friendly yet high-performance designs. And number three, they're committed to innovation and excellence in high-intensity training specifically. Founder Jeff Turner and his dedicated team are on a mission to make HIIT accessible to everyone. Getting started is easy. Number one, visit imaginestrength.com. Number two, consult with their expert team. And number three, choose the equipment that will skyrocket your business. Don't wait. Head over to imaginestrength.com and elevate your HIIT studio today with Imagine Strength. Lauren Still here, and welcome back to High Intensity Business, your one-stop shop for elevating your HIIT business and fueling your passion for high-intensity training. This is episode 447, and today's guest is Chris Beer. Chris Beer is the Wizard of Ops founder, and she advocates for entrepreneurial success. A strong and healthy business needs fundamental systems and processes. As an entrepreneurial operating system fan and Advanced Integrator Mastery Forum, it's quite a mouthful, IMF, member, Chris imparts practical advice learning from her own road rash in leading growing teams through organizational change. From her experience in the integrator seat, she helps her clients find better living through systems. And you can learn all about Chris and Wizard of Ops over on YouTube, where she's got lots of amazing content if you just search Wizard of Ops on YouTube. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today.
Pleasure to be here.
Great to see you, and I really appreciate you taking the time. And just to give, I guess, the listeners some brief context, the way I found out about you, Chris, is obviously through our mutual friend, Sheila Melody. And for those that don't know Sheila runs Strength Code in California, which is a strength training studio. And we were just discussing mind-body matters via email, and she mentioned a list of people who just so happen to have a ton of experience and expertise helping fitness businesses. Obviously, Connie Holan, who we were just discussing, who was on the podcast recently, teaching us how to design great fitness business websites, was on. And she was recommended by Sheila. And now yourself. And obviously today we're going to be delving more into systems and the EOS framework and that kind of stuff. But again, you obviously have a lot of experience and pedigree in our space. So that's really helpful, because it just helps to make sure that what we're talking about relates to everyone that is listening as well. So that's awesome. So shall we just kick off with maybe, I was just thinking about maybe doing an intro on your expertise and relationship with EOS. Maybe we could just start there and then just see where it goes. If you could just give us an intro.
Absolutely. So as we were talking before the show, I have a consulting business where for a good number of years, I focused primarily on fitness and wellness clients. And through that, became just borderline obsessed with systems, and systems purely meaning how you do what you do. And the notion of bringing systemization to companies that perhaps think they're too small for it, or perhaps think that if they bring in systems, they'll lose their unique luster. and they'll turn into, the big box gyms that they abhor. So, I'm here to
true.
say it's so true. But what happens when you fail to put in systems is, that business you love so much, you're going to work there 24/7. You are never going to step away from your business because all of it is in your head and can't be passed on to anyone else.
Mhm.
So systems really do give you, instead of thinking that systems are kind of pigeonholing you into these boxes, or pigeons are that the systems are restriction. Systems are really freedom. Systems allow you to, focus on what you truly love doing and you're good at, and pass along the rest of it to other team members. And I do a lot of utilization of tools from the EOS framework. But and we can definitely talk about that today, because it sounds like we have a mutual admiration for that,
Mhm.
simple but effective
Could
framework.
be simpler though for me. I would speak for myself.
Simple does not mean easy, right?
Yeah.
Simple
Yeah.
means simple, and you still have to put the work in. But one thing that I always say is the best system is the one that you'll use. So everyone has to tinker a little bit and find what feels right for them. However, I have found from experience that there are a lot of businesses that are running using the EOS framework.
I love this idea. Talking about a lot of businesses you speak to say they feel they're too small for this stuff. I'm actually at some point scheduled to speak with David Jennings, who wrote Systemology. You know that book?
Yes.
So probably I don't know if that's probably the book on systems that most people turn to right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really enjoyed it. But there is a chapter in there where he talks about, like, should you start implementing this? And it's basically saying, look, if you haven't got clear foundation, clear mission, vision, you haven't got product market fit, you're kind of, you should be in a place where you're getting referrals quite consistently. Like, your business is in a good place. And it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like you're almost like kind of feeling a bit overwhelmed and not, and I think that kind of litmus test or marker of success is like what stops a lot of small businesses, implementing this type of advice that we're talking about today. And so, for instance, I thought, oh, this book's great, and I referred it to someone who's probably doing a few $100,000 a year in their fitness businesses, and they read it and they thought, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet to actually start implementing this. So, and maybe we can talk about it for each book or system, the system of systems, or however you want to do this. But the same is kind of similar for EOS. It's like, I love EOS, and I just think it's a fantastic way, a way of kind of integrating all these timeless principles into one framework, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like, if you just look at the contents of this book, and you think about, okay, so some of our people, audience listening to this, maybe they're just one trainer, or maybe they've only got like, or maybe they are the one trainer, one business owner, and then they've got like maybe one trainer or not at all. Like, I feel like chapter 4, which is the people component, they could probably skip that to begin with if they're really a small business, and maybe skip some of the other chapters as well. I could be wrong. You might completely disagree. So how do you think about this, and how do you advise these small businesses in terms of implementing both systems and things like EOS?
So for EOS, I think that one of the biggest gifts that it gives is a framework called the VTO, which is the Vision Traction Organizer. And that's one thing that I love to have people start with, whether the business is just a idea in their mind, or whether the business is a couple of years old and they have, as I mentioned, that road rash that comes from, actually, being in there and running the business and seeing what this vision is actually turned into. And what the Vision Traction Organizer does is help you get a lot of clarity on the vision, on what's that thing that you're trying to build, and who are you doing it for, and why, and what marks success. And then that's the vision component of it. And then you take a couple steps back and say, great, who falls in love with this? Why does it matter to them? And you identify how your business is unique in ways that actually matter to your clients. It can be one thing that you're unique in a certain way, but it doesn't really matter, and it doesn't turn into a success unless your clients care about that unique. And then taking it one step closer, and this is where I start to shine, There are people who like to think far out in terms of vision. And then there are the people who like to think a little bit more closer to the ground in terms of, great, how are we going to get that vision done? Then you start to peel it back and say, awesome, we defined what, that GPS road mark looks like. Now, let's say 3 years out. If this is all true, 3 years out, what has to be true? Great. 1 year out, what has to be true? Awesome. 3 months out, what has to be true? And who's going to take what to get us there? And going through that exercise, again, simple, not easy. I've done it for my own business. It's been many iterations, but going through that exercise makes you get really clear on where you're going to focus your energy with even just the things you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Chances are, if you started a business, you have some fantastic ideas, you have some fantastic energy. That's all going to get squandered if you don't know what that destination is that you name as that big, people call it the BHAG or whatever. Why are you doing what you're doing? And then peel it back to those steps. So that's where I'd start. And I don't care if you're a company of one, start. It'll give you a lot of clarity on what you do tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned there about how you've gone through lots of cycles yourself. And, before we got started, you were kind of explaining how, things like systems like EOS are like, you're never truly ever done because it's like you're constantly learning, constantly getting better. And I personally I love the system, but I've had so many challenges with it, in terms of, for high intensity business, for this business, but also for personal training businesses I've worked with, where they've used it, self-implemented, of course, or our own personal training business locally here as well in Galway. It's I think one of the issues we've had, or I've had in those different examples, is this kind of like mismanagement of, or how do I say it? It's basically choosing the wrong rocks, right? And you get all excited, don't you? You go through your VTO process or your quarterly review or what have you, and you do all the different, like you said, the different kind of milestones, and you work back to the current quarter, and you set your rocks, and then what happens quite a lot, I think, is the rocks are incorrect. I think that's actually one of the hardest parts of this, is getting those right, and also a rock scope, which maybe we can talk about, which is obviously your plan for achieving those rocks. It just means that you end up, I can see a lot of people losing that motivation in investing in the system, because they go through the cycle of like, oh, well, it didn't work because, we set our rocks to this quarter, but, maybe we set the wrong rocks. And it's like, you got to have this kind of like determination to see it through and to get better at using the system. I don't know. Have you got any thoughts on that? Have you seen this sort of thing happen?
Yeah, a lot of things stick out there. So it's starting with, it's a practice. And so the point is not to ace the test and be done with it. The point is not to, do it once and then just be done with it. Oh, yeah, I'm a master. It's a continuous challenge that rolls quarter over quarter. EOS tends to think about your business in terms of quarters. And each quarter, each individual takes on what are called rocks. And rocks are the 3 to 7 most important things that you're going to focus on as an individual to move your business forward. Well, what happens and where do things go wrong? Sometimes those rocks are shiny objects, and they really aren't the things that are going to get you that one step closer to the 1 year, that one step closer to the 3 year. They're not even going in the same direction as maybe your BHAG, which is over here. And so you have to, doing that work of thinking about your vision and where you ultimately want to end up, and really truly believing in it. Don't just write it down on paper because, oh, this just sounds like what I should be doing. I'm going to tell you, your heart is going to lead you in a different direction if you don't believe what's on that paper. So being really truthful with where you want that vision to go, and then being, brutally honest. Okay, if I can only focus on 3 to 7 things, 3 to 7 initiatives over the next 90 days, am I picking this one because of recency bias, or because, I see, oh, everyone's taking on, a YouTube channel or whatever.
Everyone's on TikTok. Everyone's on TikTok. One of my
Everyone's on
rocks has got to be TikTok.
It's got to be TikTok. Okay. And then of course, how do things break down? Let's say you picked the 3 to 7. You picked 5 picture perfect rocks that are, the ideal things that would get you one step closer to your goals. But lo and behold, you screwed up. And how did you screw up? Well, one, you didn't think, how am I going to get there? So a big part of picking a rock is making it smart. So taking all the steps to make sure that, you've clearly defined, essentially, what is the purpose of this? What is the intent of this rock? It's not just, again, it's not a game. So we're not just doing something. We didn't just create a TikTok channel to create a TikTok channel. What's the bigger purpose of the rock? So defining the milestones to get there. Another thing that happens is, and I'm sure all of us have a little bit of competitive or perfectionist nature. You're trying so hard to strive to get exactly 100% of your rocks done that you pick some pretty shitty ones. And meaning you pick ones that are too easy. And EOS subscribes to the fact that winning is getting 80% of your rocks over the finish line each quarter, not 100%. If you get 100% and they were really good quality rocks, super duper. But there's going to be a chance that you had a rock that you misforecasted, or, you had some curveball in the industry come in and you're wrong. Oops.
And life happens, right? Things
Life
just
happens.
happen. Yeah.
Like move on. So yeah,
Okay.
it's picking the right rocks, but then also, the right direction for your rocks. And then also being aggressive enough to have a chance of one of those failing.
Do you ever, so just to, I love this. We can spend some more time now talking about rocks. I think it's a good time to do that. Isn't the kind of litmus test, if you achieve 80% of your rocks, you should achieve your revenue, profitable and measurables, right? For that quarter.
Yes.
That's pretty binary, right? What about maybe this is more of a mindset thing. And I'm really speaking for myself and hoping that this is something assuming that it's something that other people have a challenge with. Sometimes you kind of have a bit of self-doubt about a rock, or I don't know if I can achieve that, even if you have made it smart. And then you feel like you want to change it like mid-quarter. Do you ever have that? Do you have any thoughts on that or advice around that? Or maybe you've already addressed that to an extent.
So as the integrator, and again, to anyone who's new with EOS, there are a couple of vocab words coming at you here, but there are...
Thanks for defining these, by the way.
Absolutely. So there are some key roles within EOS, and one is the visionary, and that's typically thought of as the CEO. So that's the person who came up with the idea for the business. If they didn't come up with it, they're currently leading the charge to help us get there. They are the culture captain. They think of big ideas, innovation. They have strategic relationships. You love being around them because they have such amazing energy and such amazing ideas. What isn't awesome about them is actually follow through with it. Yes. So they love people. People love them. They're promising the moon, and sometimes they're on to the next thing, so they can't deliver. So in comes a me. I'm what's called an integrator in EOS, and it's quite often known as a COO or Chief Operating Officer in other organizations. But I'm the counterpart to the visionary, and my job is to not only execute upon those ideas, but to serve as a filter. So it's really easy when you have so many glorious, juicy ideas every day to want to execute all of them. But what happens when you execute all of them? Your roadmap to wherever you're going gets really wonky, right? And the people driving in the car are getting a little bit car sick. Because, one day we're TikTok, one day we're newsletters, one way we're direct mail. What the hell are we doing here? So my job quite often is to be Captain No, and to have someone who is that checks and balances and can tell the difference between a rock that perhaps is 1, too aspirational, or 2, a little bit off the beaten path, literally not going to get us to where we're going, versus something that we just don't know how to do yet. And that's really the difference between, figuring out, okay, do I just not know how to do this yet? And when you break that down, the two roads that you would take are figuring out, okay, well, one, there's a plethora of information out there. So I just need to go find the right trusted resource. Or if it comes to a time, a capacity issue, you need to go and look for what Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach would call your who. So you're not necessarily trying to figure out the how. You just need to know the who knows how to do whatever that thing is and is going to unlock that for you.
Mhm. Yeah, that's such a great concept, who, not how. Yeah, I just thought, I thought I might even go into an example. So I think, tell me, let me know if you think this is a good idea, Chris. So if we're doing a rock, and let's say our rock is to, maybe one rock might be to go from X to Y clients, personal training clients, let's say. It could be, obviously,
Yep.
this could be applied to any business. It could be like to go from this quarter, we're going to go from 50 to 70.
Okay.
So from there, you would obviously have a separate work stream to work out exactly how you're going to do that, called like a rock scope. Is that what you would do? Is that the method you use? Yeah.
That's what I would do. So I would think,
Okay.
okay, what do I need to do to get there? And then reality is going to set in. What's going to, I've defined, let's say if all the lights are green, I'm driving, all the lights are green. These are the steps I would take to get there. Well, occasionally the light's going to be red, or there's going to be some sort of a detour. So now I need to think about, well, what happens if I have 50 personal training clients and I attract 40 new ones? Super duper. What happens? What can I do to also stem attrition at the same time? So,
Mm.
Chances are, again, like, let's think about, is it a game, or is it focusing on what's for the overall good of the company? Because if it's merely like, just let's check the box that we got to 75 clients, cool, you can play a game, get to 75 clients with a plan to maintain 75 clients, would be a fuller, richer rock.
Today's episode is sponsored by Imagine Strength, the game changer in safe, simple, and effective high-intensity training machines. When it comes to HIIT, Imagine Strength is your go-to for intelligently designed, efficient, and affordable equipment. Their team is passionate about HIIT, and it shows in every piece they craft. So why are Imagine Strength the right choice? Number one, they tailor-make their equipment for HIIT studios. Number two, they provide cost-effective solutions for your business. And number three, they are committed to ongoing innovation and refinement. Ready to take your HIIT business to the next level? Visit imaginestrength.com to discuss your needs and find the perfect gear for your studio. Join the HIIT revolution of Imagine Strength and transform your workout experience today. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I guess the way I would think about it is having like another rock for retention, something retention related, to make sure that's not being forgotten. Like you say, it's
Exactly.
no point acquiring 20 more customers if you've lost 20 at the same time. You stayed in the same place, right? So I know just to elaborate more, I guess, on what that rock scope might look like, what activities might look like. I mean, would it literally be something like, okay, we're going to look at what? So I'm really trying to get specific here because I want this to be really relatable to those listening. And I know this is something that some listeners have struggled with. So it's like, what exactly are we going to do? So right, how would you break it down? Would you be like, okay, so we want to get 20, we've got 13 weeks to do it. Would you break it down by week? Okay, we need 20 divided by 13, which is what I'm going to use a calculator for.
So I would break it down by week, and that you need to get your one or two people in for if you need 1 to 2 people to come in and actually engage as a new client, you'd have to look back on your data and say, okay, well, and if you don't have it, this is the time to start spitballing so that you can get data. But chances are, in order to get, 1 new person in a week, you probably need to talk to 3 people a week, and beyond, then go one step out. So you've talked to them. Now you need to be on the radar of 15 people. So start, it's kind of like reading right to left. You start with the end goal. So start with where do you want to be? And you're like, okay, well, how did we get almost there? Oh, cool. What did it take to get there? What did it take to get there? Because sometimes I feel starting at the start line, it just gets really, it seems overwhelming. But I think backing from the finish line for, going backwards helps, I don't know, at least helps me think, and also helps me think about potential roadblocks, like I said.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I love the way you described that. Yeah, and obviously this is highly like situational, depending on the listener and their business and where they're at. Like you said, if they've got data, if they know, okay, well, we acquire this many customers on average at this time of the year last year, then obviously that's going to be baked into their rock scope, right? Because they can kind of start to estimate, what's going to happen organically if they do nothing. If everything stays the same, and they do no additional tactics, then this is what they can estimate. But yeah, like obviously for the purpose of this example, it's 1.5, so you're pretty much on the money. New customers.
Mathlete, not an athlete. Yep.
I had to do the calculation. And then based on like a very modest conversion, maybe you want 2 to 3 free consultations, let's say, or free workouts we would typically do in our industry. And then a certain number of people who have been exposed to that offer, right? I guess would be the other thing. So it's like, then you got to think, what are the activities? So I know we're getting very specific now, but I just still love your thoughts. So maybe you think of doing networking. You think, right, I'm going to go to X number of events, because we know that can work very well in our space per week.
I'm going to go to X number of events. I'm also going to be really realistic about time. So let's say that it is that the quarter we're talking about happens to be the last quarter of the year. Well, that's, October, November, December. Let me be realistic about how much time I really have, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And so do that from the beginning, knowing, so the example of that, you'd probably have 10 weeks to play with instead of the 13 weeks in a quarter. And then also, make the plan to, make sure that it's spaced out so that you're not waiting and giving yourself the false security that these rock milestones are on track until it gets really close to the end of the quarter and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot. It's not. If you're intending to gain 1 to 2 clients a week, you need to do it slow and steady. And you also need to measure it. So say if we're doing that and you have your plan in place to go networking, bring people in for the free demo, and you're not converting, well, that stinks. But the nice thing about actually working the plan and measuring what you're doing is that you have time to turn left. You have time to say, hey, we're doing this, and this looked super cool on paper at the beginning of the quarter, but it's not working. So now what are we going to do? So I think that it comes down to making plans and, making your rock, identifying the steps to get there, holding on to them loosely. Meaning, don't be so stupid and stubborn that you wrote this down and there's no way we can switch the tactic midway through. You're not changing what the end goal is. Let me make that really clear. So if you did say 20 and you're off to a sputtering start, you can't say, well, let's just make it 8. That's not what I'm
guilty.
saying. I've been there too. You can't do that. But the purpose of measuring and monitoring and being open and honest with what those numbers are is the ability, again, 2 miles into the road trip to say, yeah, that's not working. We got to try a different route.
Yeah. Yeah. Some really wise words there. Couple of things you said. I should also give a big, a shout out to Rani Debray. I think that's how you say Rani's last name. She's an EOS implementer here in Ireland. I don't know if you're familiar.
Fantastic. No, I'm not.
I think she might be the only one. I could be wrong, but she's fantastic. I've worked with her. So we actually hired her for our studio here and she was great. And she actually helped me understand what you just said about, you've got to look at your 13 weeks and realize, especially if you're constrained in terms of your resources and people, that actually, oh, these 2 weeks you're going on vacation or you're doing X, Y, and Z. You won't even have time to execute, right? So you
Yeah.
actually got less time. So working backwards on that is obviously really helpful. And also, you kind of alluded to this. It's like when you actually do work backwards and you work it all the way back to the present day, you realize, oh, it's actually quite achievable. I only need to acquire X. I need to acquire 1.5 clients. Like when you actually come to that realization, it's like, oh wow, that's actually really achievable.
It's funny. It's
And
like
yeah,
they
go
say
ahead.
like that the hardest part of the workout is putting on your shoes. It's basically
Yeah,
that. It's the hardest part of quite often, not always,
yeah,
but quite
yeah,
often
no, yeah.
the hardest part of these reps is just defining what is that scope. What are the steps I'm going to take to get there?
And I love what you said there about it. Like the plan is a plan, but it's not set in stone. It's kind of malleable. It has to be because
Yeah,
life. What's the saying? You make plans and God laughs, right?
right.
Um, that's being said to me a lot since I've had young children. God. Um, so it's like but what I'm hearing when I'm hearing you speak is yes, life throws you a curveball and you have to pivot, but knowing that because you've got this plan you're working within, you're always taking the right action for a change. So even though, okay, it's crap and you have to kind of turn left and do something different and be innovative, it's like that's what actually you should be doing. And I think most of us don't have these frameworks or these goals. So we're just kind of operating aimlessly and we're just
Right.
doing whatever we're doing the fad of the week, everyone's jumping on TikTok for marketing, and
Yeah.
we're just not really on. So that you should. I'm thinking very like obstacle is the way. Ryan Holiday here. It's like yes, when those things happen, it kind of sucks, but there's actually the opportunity in that is that it's actually aligning you into what you should be focused on anyway. If that makes sense. I don't know if that, yeah,
No, exactly. And realizing that again, capacity is a real thing. So we want to
yeah,
take over the world. We want to do everything, but chances are that in a fitness or a wellness business, you don't have a staff of 100. You may have people who are, part-time. You may have people who are owning what in EOS you call seats. So different areas of functionality within the company. So your person who runs, marketing and has picked those marketing rocks may also be your head trader. And they've picked rocks for that as well. So just again, being realistic, knowing that, it's all doable, but you have to plan in advance.
yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's see here. So kind of covered rock scope quite well. I just wondered, are there elements of EOS that you feel maybe having used EOS in former life and in kind of the fitness industry? What elements do you feel are not very well understood? And maybe myself and some of us listening should be taking more clarity breaks. Clarity break for those listening is just where you take 1 to 2 hours off-site to just sit there with a legal pad,
Mhm.
pencil, and just brain dump on whatever constraint or issue you're trying to solve in your business. Um, yeah, is there any elements of EOS that you don't feel are very well understood and that we should take more time like that to actually try and understand better and implement better?
So I love that you brought up clarity breaks because it it's one of those things that is for many is a should.
Yeah, I
I should be
struggle.
doing
Yeah,
I should be doing this. I feel
yeah,
like, or you feel like your clarity break. You have to wait until you're sitting on an island, sitting on an island one day with that mythical, week off. And you mentioned having, people who have kids or have, other responsibilities. It seems like it's something that you could never do. A clarity break doesn't need to be fancy. A clarity break is a walk. The only qualifier in my term for a clarity break is to not put anything in your ears.
yeah,
So one thing that I'm very guilty of, I get out for my walks, but I always have something, I'm listening to a podcast, I'm listening to music. I'm not allowing just that quiet in my brain. And the quiet in your brain is where, it's like the shower thoughts. It's where those areas of clarity and brilliance can come from, but you have to create that space. So again, don't wait for, the perfect, chair on the beach to have your clarity break. You need a $2 legal pad and, and a couple of free hours. That's it. Leave your phone at home and just write, write and write and write. And another mini version of that, which was just given to me by a good friend who's an EOS implementer, is to incorporate daily journaling as a way of kind of a quick and dirty clarity break. And with simply 2 prompts that kind of end your workday. And that could be, what did I do today and where did I get stuck?
Mm.
It's freeing to get that out of your head.
And you
It's
just stream of
also
consciousness. Like,
stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
And I bet you anything, if you look through, your pen and paper scribblings, you're going to see some patterns that are emerging. And those will help you identify what we call root issues. So a lot of times the things that we're really solving are just, those kind of surface level weeds that pop up instead of going to the true roots. So taking the time and, openness to reflect on what are the real root issues within my company. And then being willing to address them, because that's, it's called like going into the danger, right? It's because we all have things that are not ideal within our company that we just don't touch because it's the way it is. And right?
So true. Yeah.
It's so true.
I'm thinking of someone sent me a screenshot today, which is a huge compliment because they were saying I was in their top 5 podcasts they listened to. And it was a screenshot on Spotify and the logo is really old. It's like my really old logo. And I was like, I need to get that updated. I really need to just, I've got so much inconsistency. It's just total digression, tangent. But you're just making me think of things that really bother me, which may be not as important as they probably are. But if they're actually causing me stress every day, that is important in a way. And I should get them resolved. But anyway.
No, but it's a good thing. I mean, again, it's, so, having real life clarity breaks, and then also knowing that within, say, the EOS framework, and, there are different versions of this, whatever operating system you're looking at, but, EOS has these roles of visionary and integrator. And as I described, they are 2 different brains. They are 2 different brains. They are 2 different ways of operating. And a big mistake that heads of companies often do is assume that they can successfully be both. And they can, yes, successfully be both for maybe a short amount of time. Their battery is going to go like this. Right. They are going to fizzle out and they are going to literally burn the people around them. So getting yourself some sort of a partner, and perhaps that's a partner in your business, like a true financial partner. Perhaps it's it could, for fitness studios, it could be a studio manager, someone to bounce ideas off of, to be your peer, someone who will say no to you. That's what I'm looking for. Someone to say, to say, no, not right now. This is not the right thing for us to do right now. So, don't do it on your own, I guess would be my biggest thing. And then to embrace what you are naturally inclined to do. And I'm going ahead and assuming that, the person who owns the company is a visionary. They may not be that person. I know plenty of people who are fantastic owners who prefer to be more on the logistics side of things. And when it comes to being that culture captain and, out there building strategic relationships, all of that good stuff, it's something that really drains their battery. Maybe that's the part they need to outsource. But knowing that one person can't be both of those for the long term.
Okay, good advice. Just making a little transition to systems. Something that I think I saw this in some of your content, at least give me the idea for the question, is what do you advocate any sort of systems in your personal life or in your client's personal life that make their professional life easier?
Yes. So I actually took the time about 2 years ago to make a personal VTO. And I thought, I am trying to be, again, remember it's practice. I'm trying to be so intentional with growing my business. However, when it comes to my personal life, it's a little bit more loosey-goosey. And again, I mean, there are parts of our personal life that, kind of come and go, but the same in business, right? And so you can't be intentional with your time outside of work if you don't actually think about where you want to be in 5 years, where you want to be in 10 years. And like we said with the example of the business, where you want to be in 5 years or 10 years gets broken down to where you want to be in 3 years, where you want to be in 1 year, where you want to be in 3 months. And, your business self is only one part of you. And your personal self is a very big, very important part of it. But quite so often we are not intentional about that. So it could mean, for me, it has meant being very intentional about growing my professional network and maintaining time to do that. And, and that's also cut down.
Isn't that still work?
It's still work, but it's helping me find kind of my buddies. I guess I should say, you have friends for different seasons of your life. And some of those professional buddies, professional networking, ticking off the rock to meet, my rock is to meet 13 new people every quarter.
Is that actually, or is that just an example?
It is.
Oh, wow. And do you find a lot of your friends these days are ones that you have, they're interested in business? You have a lot of similar interests that are related to business, do you find? Because I find that.
It is. And so I guess that's kind of where I was. Thanks for landing my plane there. Because that's where I was going. No. But really, that's where I was going with that in terms of you are who you surround yourself with. And it's almost like, if you're so intentional about, surrounding yourself with the right content and the right people and the right energy with your business, you need to do the same thing with your personal life. And there's a good chance that there's, if growing a business is a big part of who you are, your personal circle needs to evolve to that as well.
Yeah. I'm also conscious though of, I do want to make time for people that have really no interest in business, that are interested in other things. It kind of grounds me a little bit, but I notice if I have too much of that, then I can get a little bit kind of miserable. Maybe that's a strong word. Imbalanced.
And perhaps it doesn't have to be, it's not that they're producing revenue, that they're producing, or that they're even, heading up a business. It's that they're operating their life in a way that is intentional about producing what they want that end goal to be. That was a very twisted way of saying, like, you want to be, I don't know. I feel like I want to be around people who are, again, being intentional about the way they're living their life and are trying to produce something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
And that, again, that something could be a business. That something could be, a faith-based or family or whatever it is. But it doesn't have to be, I only want to be friends with business owners. That would be pretty boring.
Yeah, you're probably right. Just before we wrap up, I wondered if you had one final thought on, again, the same question really, systems in your personal life that make your professional life easier. So you spoke there, it was really interesting about how you've implemented EOS in your personal life. Are there any other actual systems or routines or anything like that that you find that if you do it in your personal life, it just makes your professional life easier in that sense?
This is a really
personal question.
No, but a really silly one. My phone sleeps downstairs now.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was really hard to break up with like cuddling with my phone at night, but it and we all do it. And it was a very intentional effort in October that I'm probably, again, it's a practice. I'm probably, 90% of the way there in terms of, nights where Mr. Phone sleeps downstairs. But just, again, being mindful of rest. And I think that's what, the phone piece of it I found was impeding good quality sleep. And so, making sure that my rest was in place so that my energy could be there for all the things that I want it to be.
Yeah. Great tip. Obviously, it's one of those that you hear quite a lot, but I don't know, it's quite refreshing to hear, oh yeah, that's something that I've actually implemented. It's like, oh yeah, maybe all of us should be doing that.
Get an accountability buddy and again, if you have kids, they are fantastic little snitches.
How do you mean? You say, I'm going to do this. And then
I'm going to do this. And then they're
okay.
like, oh, wait, like mom was playing with her phone in bed. And you're like,
that's a good idea. Mine are only 2 and 4 years old. So
no, they know what
still think they're ready for that. They're ready for that. Yeah. Okay. I'll utilize it.
They'll rat you out.
Chris, thank you so much for your time today. Really great to connect with you. And I love the fact that we got real, how do we say it? Real kind of like, we weren't high level. We went pretty deep on some of these EOS related topics. And of course, if everyone wants to find out more about you and learn more about what you do, it's Wizard of Ops on YouTube, and you've got tons of great content that people can learn all about, EOS and the work you do in terms of being an integrator and all the rest of it. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, thank you so much for having me. And again, no business is too small to systemize. So just focus on doing what you do and documenting the rest so that you can free yourself up to focus on, what your unique challenge is.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everyone listening, to get the show notes for this episode, please go to highintensitybusiness.com and search for episode 447. And until next time, thank you very much for listening. This episode is brought to you by Imagine Strength, your go-to for safe, simple, and effective high-intensity training equipment. Growing a successful high-intensity training business requires workout equipment that's not only high quality, but also intelligently designed to fit the unique needs of your studio. And that's where Imagine Strength comes in. Drawing on the wisdom of the legendary Arthur Jones, Imagine Strength has crafted a groundbreaking line of fitness equipment that's as affordable as it is efficient, giving your studio the upgrade it needs without breaking the bank. The team at Imagine Strength breathes HIIT. Their passion for high-intensity training shines through in their designs, which they've consistently refined and innovated for optimum effectiveness and user experience. From my personal experience at Rec, I can attest to the careful consideration and craftsmanship that goes into every single piece. My Imagine Strength workout was absolutely brutal, in a good way, of course. Now, what makes Imagine Strength truly stand out? They have innovative equipment tailored for the unique needs of HIIT studios, affordable and efficient designs, lowering the barriers to entry for a HIIT business, continuous innovation and refinement ensuring your studio stays ahead of the curve. Founder Jeff Turner and his team are dedicated to moving the HIIT industry forward and making strength training accessible to more people than ever before. Here's how you get started. Number 1, visit imaginestrength.com. Number 2, discuss your specific needs with the team. And number 3, select the equipment that will propel your business to the next level. Head to imaginestrength.com today and give your HIIT business the Imagine Strength edge. Be part of the HIIT revolution and see firsthand how their unique equipment can transform your studio's workout experience. Elevate your HIIT business with Imagine Strength. Let's go.